They say when you are about to die, your whole life flashes before your eyes. Mine did not. Instead, I saw the Thanksgiving turkey. Golden, steaming, sprinkled with rosemary. I saw the polished mahogany table I had bought 30 years ago on credit. My late wife's favorite linen napkins. The candles my oldest daughter insisted on buying for the aesthetic. I heard the clink of crystal glasses and the murmur of voices, and then I heard my own voice saying, "I'd like to say a few words of gratitude this year." I had spent half the night thinking about those words. 69 years of life behind me, 2 heart attacks, 1 dead wife, 3 adult children who hadn't called me for months unless they needed something. I wanted to tell them I forgave them for their distance, that I loved them anyway. I wanted to tell them about their mother and how she would have been proud of them if they tried just a bit harder to be human. I didn't get that far. My tongue suddenly grew heavy, sticking to the roof of my mouth. The room tilted as if someone had grabbed the house and twisted it by one corner. The candles stretched into smears of light. The chair vanished under me. My arms didn't rise to catch my fall. The floor rushed up toward my face. It was not cinematic, it was just wood and dust, and the distant smell of burnt onion. The festive noise vanished, like someone had hit mute on the world. I lay there, half inside my body, half out of it, unable to move, unable to blink, the side of my face pressed to the hardwood. And then, in that thin silence, I heard the sentence that changed everything. "So, is the old man finally done?" That was my son, Daniel. My only son. 37 years old, soft hands, softer spine. His voice had that strange mix of irritation and hope, like he was talking about a broken appliance. "Don't celebrate so soon, sis," my younger daughter Lisa replied. "First we'll call an ambulance, and then we'll think about who gets how much." They laughed. Not loudly, not hysterically. Just a small, nervous laugh that sliced deeper than any scream. I lay there, completely paralyzed, listening to my children discuss me in the past tense. I had always feared dying alone. I never expected to die surrounded by people and still be treated like a piece of furniture. "Well, children," I remember thinking as darkness folded over me like a heavy blanket, "your bag of money is not ready to be emptied yet. Not before I teach you how to love your father. Not before I teach you the one thing you never learned, how to earn something on your own." I woke up in layers. First came the sounds. Beeping. Regular, expensive beeping. Somewhere a machine sighed, like a tired person. Voices swam past my ears, warped and distant. Non-responsive. GCS-7. Post-ischemic coma. They were talking about me as if I were not there. It was oddly comforting. Doctors sound confident even when they are guessing. Then came the smells. Disinfectant, plastic, old sweat, the sickly sweetness of flowers in a vase somewhere nearby. Then came pain, a dull, heavy weight in my chest, like someone had parked a car on me and forgotten to take off the handbrake. I tried to open my eyes and discovered my eyelids had been replaced with concrete slabs. Nothing moved. Not my hands, not my legs, not my tongue. My throat burned with the presence of a tube. I tried to cough, and nothing happened. If panic could kill, I would have died again right there. Instead, I forced myself to listen. "Family?" a woman's voice asked. "Nurse, probably." "3 grown children," a man replied. "Doctor, confident, detached. None here when he came in." "Did they call the ambulance?" the nurse asked. "Neighbors did," the doctor said after a pause. "Apparently the family thought he'd just slipped. The neighbor came over with a pie and found him on the floor. There are conversations you never want to hear about yourself. That was one of them." I lay there, useless as a sack of potatoes, and let their words settle into me. None of my children had come with me to the hospital. No one had climbed into the ambulance holding my hand, wiping my forehead, crying over my cold fingers. They had stayed at the house, probably wrapping leftovers while paramedics carried me out of my own dining room. The bag of money was being transported. The owners stayed with the turkey. Good, I thought. Good. The clearer the picture, the cleaner the cut later. Time became something strange after that. I drifted in and out of a blank gray sea where there were no days, only bright beeping and muffled footsteps and occasional needles of pain. Sometimes someone moved my limbs. Sometimes someone spoke right next to my ear. "Can you hear me, Mr. Collins?" the nurse would ask, her voice kind. "If you can hear me, try to move your fingers." I tried. God, how I tried. It was like screaming in a dream, your voice trapped inside your skull. Nothing. "Nothing yet," she would say, with a note of apology to the doctor. "But his vitals are strong." "Which is ironic, considering the extent of the stroke," another doctor answered once. "The body is stubborn." I don't know how long I lay there before I heard the first familiar voices. The curtain rustled. Shoes squeaked on linoleum. The air shifted with perfume I recognized. My older daughter's overwhelming floral cloud. "He looks terrible," Anna whispered. She always whispered loudly, like a stage actress. "Do you think he knows we're here?" "Does it matter?" Daniel answered. "The lawyer said the main thing is that he's still alive. No reading of the will until he, you know." "Don't say dies," Lisa said. "You'll jinx it." "You want him to wake up?" Daniel's voice dripped with sarcasm. "You want to go back to pretending our lives revolve around Dad's mood? I'm too old for that." "Oh, please," Anna sighed. "Your life revolves around sports channels and fantasy stocks, not Dad's mood." "At least I try to invest," Daniel snapped. "You just sit on Instagram whining about content fatigue." "Shut up, both of you," Lisa hissed. "The nurse will hear." I wanted to laugh, to shout, to sit up and clap and say, "Children, your father is not dead yet, but your dignity is." Instead, I lay there, a breathing mannequin, listening. "Look at him," Anna whispered after a moment. "He doesn't even look like Dad." "He looks like a corpse," Daniel said flatly. Something inside my chest contracted, harder than any cramp. "Stop it," Lisa said, but her voice shook. "He could, I don't know, he could feel something." Anna snorted. "You're the one who said after Mom died that all this talk about souls and feelings is sentimental nonsense." Silence. Then Daniel cleared his throat. "Let's be practical. The lawyer said Dad's estate is, what was it?" 2-point-something million, Anna replied automatically. "House, accounts, business shares, the cabin. If he sells the workshop, too." "You already added it up," Daniel muttered. "Don't look at me like that," she said. "You think I didn't notice you Googling inheritance laws on your phone during dinner?" "Can we not do this here?" Lisa whispered. "He's lying right there." Daniel sighed. "Fine. We'll talk in the hall. After we, I don't know, say something nice so the nurse believes we're devoted children." I heard fabric rustling. Someone patted my hand the way you pat a dog you don't like. "Get better, Dad," Anna said, her voice suddenly loud and bright, clearly for the nurse's benefit. "We're all waiting for you back home." Their footsteps retreated. The nurse came in shortly after, her shoes soft, her hands firm as she adjusted my blanket. "You heard them, didn't you?" she murmured, almost to herself. Sometimes I think coma patients are the only ones who know what their families really are. If I could have, I would have squeezed her hand. A week later, I moved a finger. It did not look like a miracle. It looked like a barely noticeable tremor in my right hand, a twitch so small I thought I had imagined it. But the nurse saw. She grabbed my wrist like it was a rope thrown to a drowning man. "Mr. Collins," she breathed. "Do that again." I tried. It took everything I had, but my index finger scraped against the sheet. She shouted for the doctor. People came running. Light exploded in my eyes as someone peeled my eyelid open. "Follow my finger, Mr. Collins." I tried. The world was blurry, wrong, too bright, but the shadow of a finger moved left, right. I chased it with my gaze, sluggish, disconnected. "That's it," the doctor murmured, excitement creeping into his voice. "He's coming back." It took another week to fully open my eyes, another 2 to move my lips. The first words I managed to produce sounded like stones dropping from my mouth. "Water," I croaked. The nurse cried then, actual tears. None of my children had cried beside my bed. By the end of the second month I could sit up with support. The tube was gone from my throat. My left side was weaker, but my mind was sharp like a knife that had been honed on betrayal. "Most people your age remain bedridden after such a stroke," the doctor told me, adjusting his glasses. "You are exceptionally stubborn, Mr. Collins." "You have no idea," I rasped. Because while my muscles were learning to remember how to move, my mind was busy designing something else entirely. I was designing a test. The first time they saw me sitting up, it was as if the dead had climbed out of his coffin during his own wake. Anna's mouth literally fell open. Lisa dropped her bag. Daniel muttered something that I am fairly sure was not a prayer. "Dad?" Anna gasped. You're awake." I pretended to be more fragile than I felt. Let them think they still had the upper hand. "I am," I said, forcing a weak smile. "Disappointed?" Lisa flushed. "Don't say that, Dad. We've been so worried." The nurse, standing behind them, raised an eyebrow at me. Her face was calm, but I saw understanding in her eyes. She had heard them in the corridor. She knew. "I'm sure you were," I said. They swarmed closer, talking too fast, tripping over each other's stories of how busy they had been, how many times they had tried to come, but work and life and traffic and the dog had all conspired against them. I listened, nodding, cataloging every lie. Anna, the eldest at 42, wore success like a costume. Designer blouse, cheap shoes. She called herself a consultant, which meant she posted generic motivational phrases online and waited for sponsors to notice her. Daniel, in his 30s, had the permanent squint of someone always looking at a screen. He traded things that were not real, currencies, options, the latest online schemes, then came running to me whenever his bets went wrong. Lisa, the youngest at 31, drifted between projects, perpetually between jobs, her life a collage of short-lived attempts and long complaints. All of them had something in common. Not one of them had ever held a regular official long-term job where you clock in, work, pay taxes, and go home tired with honest money in your pocket. That was partly my fault. I had given them too much. I had believed that making their lives easier was the same as loving them. Lying in that hospital bed, listening to them discuss my assets as if they were items on a clearance sale, I realized my mistake. Love without boundaries breeds entitlement. Entitlement breeds contempt. I was done breeding anything. "Dad," Anna said after 20 minutes of chatter, "the lawyer called. He said we should talk to you about some arrangements." "Arrangements," Daniel echoed, his eyes flickering to the monitor behind me. To my heart rate, my oxygen saturation. Numbers he did not understand but hoped would favor him. "Something about your will," Lisa added, her voice careful, as if the word might trigger a sensor. I looked at each of them in turn, letting the silence expand until even the machines seemed to hesitate. "My will," I repeated slowly. "Yes, we will talk about that." Their shoulders relaxed just a little. "After I leave the hospital," I added. They stiffened again. You're leaving?" Anna asked. "Yes." I pushed myself a little higher on the pillows, showing them I could. "In a few weeks. I'll need a wheelchair, and there will be rehab, but I am not dying in this room. That was the first time I saw fear in Daniel's eyes. Real fear, not of losing me, of losing the easy solution. He had already planned my funeral in his head. Now someone had postponed the event. "Well," Anna said quickly, "that's great, Dad. Really. We're happy." I smiled. I had gone into that coma as their father. I was coming out as their judge. They brought me home in early February, 2 months after Thanksgiving. The house felt different. My late wife's plants in the living room were dead, their pots empty, pushed into a corner. A new television I had never seen hung on the wall, larger than the old one. My workshop smelled like stranger's perfume. A neighbor? A cleaning service? Or just Anna spraying something to cover the stench of laziness? I wheeled myself into the living room, my muscles trembling with effort, and looked around at the space where I had raised my children, where I had kissed their scraped knees, where I had whispered to my wife after they went to bed. Now it was just one more asset on their mental spreadsheet. They came that evening, all three, miraculously free from their very busy lives. "Dad, we should talk," Daniel said, after the obligatory 15 minutes of small talk and exaggerated concern. "Yes," I said, "we should." We gathered around the dining table, the same table I had collapsed beside, the place where I had heard their first verdict. This time, I sat at the head, in my wheelchair, clear-headed, hands folded in front of me. "I called Mr. Green," I said. "My lawyer. He has revised my will according to my instructions." Anna leaned forward unconsciously. Daniel's eyes lit up. Lisa swallowed. "I will not lie to you," I continued. "I know what I am worth. You know what I am worth. That is why you are all here, not just tonight, in my life." Their protests erupted immediately. "Dad, how can you say that? That's not fair. We love you, not your money." I lifted one hand, my fingers shaking slightly but sufficient to warn them into silence. "I lay on that floor paralyzed while you argued about whether I was done," I said quietly. "I lay in that hospital bed and heard you debate my assets within arm's reach of my supposed corpse. I am old, but I am not deaf. Not yet." Color drained from their faces. "I heard everything," I said. Silence fell like a crash. Lisa burst into tears. Anna stared at the tablecloth pattern as if it were suddenly fascinating. Daniel clenched his jaw, a muscle twitching near his temple. "I thought you were unconscious," he whispered. "So did I said. "And then I learned that sometimes you only hear the truth when people think you are gone." I let that hang between us, heavy and ripe. "You want my money," I said. "Fine, let's talk about my money." "Dad," Anna began, "we—" "Be quiet," I said. There was no anger in it, just finality. "You have all lived your lives as if money grows on old men and falls when they collapse. I worked 50 years to make sure you had a childhood I did not have. I woke up at 4 in the morning to open the workshop. I froze on construction sites. I came home dirty, exhausted, and you never wanted for anything, not food, not clothes, not education. I did not begrudge you that." Their eyes glossed over with old images, birthdays, Christmases, school trips. "But in doing so," I continued, "I raised 3 adults who do not know what it feels like to earn a dollar that did not come through me." "That's not—" Anna began. "How many years did you work at a regular job with a contract, taxes, and a boss you answer to?" I interrupted. She opened her mouth, closed it again. "Influencing is—" "0, I said. "Daniel, you—" "I had that job at the electronics store," he muttered. "For 4 months, I said. "In college. You quit because the manager spoke to you in a tone you did not like." He flushed, looking away. "Lisa?" She fidgeted with her bracelet. "You know I'm entrepreneurial." "In other words, you start things and never finish them," I said. 0. They sat there, adults in expensive clothes, looking suddenly like children again. "So here is what will happen," I said. They leaned forward despite themselves. "I am not dividing my estate equally," I said. "I am not dividing it according to age or gender or who visited me more in the hospital. I am leaving everything to one person." Their eyes widened. "One of you," I said. "And only one." A small, greedy silence pooled on the table like spilled wine. "Dad, that's insane," Lisa whispered. "We're family. You can't pit us against each other like—" "I can do whatever I want with what I earned," I said. "For once in your lives you will operate under my conditions, not the other way around." Anna swallowed. "What conditions?" I felt the old craftsman in me enjoying the moment, the reveal after months of quiet work. "The person who will inherit everything," I said, "will be the first of you to earn $50,000. They stared. "50,000?" Daniel repeated. "You mean, like, profit from investments?" "From work," I said calmly. "From an official job, contract, pay stub, taxes. You will provide proof to Mr. Green. He will verify it. No side deals, no under-the-table cash. $50,000 of earned income. Then, and only then, will that child become my sole heir." The room exploded. "That's ridiculous." "Dad, you can't be serious." 50,000? At our age? Do you know how long that'll take?" I waited. "You complain as if the idea of working for money is a death sentence," I said when they finally paused for breath. "I worked my whole life. Your mother worked before she got sick. You will forgive me if I think you are capable of doing the same for a year or two if your dream is to possess my millions." "That could take years," Anna said, horrified. "Yes," I agreed. "It could." "What if—" Lisa swallowed. "What if you die before any of us reach that amount?" "An excellent question," I said. "If I die before any of you earn that money, the estate will go not to the one closest to that sum, but to a scholarship fund in your mother's name. None of you will receive anything." That shut them up. "You are cruel," Anna whispered. "No," I said. "I am old. There's a difference. Cruelty enjoys causing pain. Age is simply tired of repeating the same lesson." Daniel rubbed his face. "So let me get this straight. You want us to go get normal jobs? Like clock in, clock out jobs?" "Yes." "And whoever earns 50 grand first, legally and officially, gets everything?" "Yes." "And if you die before that happens, we get nothing?" "You are an adult. You understand words." Lisa stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. "You're going to make us fight each other." "I am going to make you work," I said. "What you do to each other along the way is your choice." "You're serious," Anna murmured. "Completely," I said. "Mr. Green has the new will. You are free to consult with your own lawyers, but it will change nothing." They stared at me in silence. You know that moment in a storm when you feel the pressure drop right before the lightning strikes? That was the room. Then Daniel pushed back his chair, the legs screeching on the floor. "Fine," he said. "If this is your final game, I'll play it. I'll win it too." Anna shot him a furious look. You can barely keep track of your passwords." "At least I understand numbers," he snapped. "You live in filters." They turned on each other with the ease of practice. I watched them, listening not to their words but to the sound under them, the fear, the greed, the confusion. Like children at the edge of a pool, shivering, trying to decide who will jump first. "You have 6 weeks to present your first pay stub to Mr. Green," I said quietly. "If none of you have done so by then, the conditions remain, but I will add another clause." "What clause?" Lisa asked, instantly wary. "You do not want to know," I said. "I suggest you do something you have not done in years. I suggest you hurry." That night, alone in my room, I lay awake listening to the house creak. My heart beat slowly, stubbornly, like the piston of an old machine. So this is what revenge feels like, I thought. Not hot, not wild, cold, precise, like drafting a blueprint. I closed my eyes. If I had known then what that decision would do to us, I might have hesitated. Or maybe not. Because the next months changed my children more than any sermon, any plea, any tear ever could, and nearly broke me in the process. You may be wondering if I worried that I had gone too far. I did. The first time was 2 weeks into my inheritance challenge, as Anna gleefully called it on her private social media while pretending not to care in real life. She was the first to move. A week after our conversation, my phone vibrated with a message from her. "Got a job," it said. "Marketing coordinator, full-time, benefits. See, I can do normal." There was a photo attached. Anna in a simple blouse in front of a glass building, the kind of office block you forget 10 seconds after you see it. The smile on her face was too wide, stretched, but there was something in her eyes that looked almost hopeful. I saved the picture. 3 days later, Daniel announced he had accepted a position at a logistics warehouse. "Just temporary till my investments pay off," he said. "But hey, it's decent money, night shifts. I can trade during the day." Lisa predictably did nothing for a while. She researched options, updated her resume, talked to people. Translation: she procrastinated. When the third week came and the fear of being the only one without a paycheck finally outweighed her laziness, she called me. Her voice was small. "Dad, there's an opening at a care facility for seniors, activities coordinator, part-time but with a chance to grow. They said I don't have much experience, but they liked my energy." My chest tightened. A care facility, seniors, old men sitting in rooms waiting for visits that never came. I took a breath. "Do you want the job?" "I don't know," she said honestly. "It smells like antiseptic, and everyone walks so slowly, but they look at you as if they're starving for something. I don't know what. Attention, maybe. But the pay is decent. And it's a job." "Then take it," I said. She did. For the first 6 weeks, my plan looked like it might actually work. They crashed into the working world like porcelain dolls dropped on concrete. Anna called me after her first full week. "How did you do this for decades?" she groaned. "I sit in a chair for 8 hours. My back feels like someone stabbed it. My eyes hurt. My boss gives me feedback that sounds like someone politely telling you you're useless but must smile anyway." "Feedback is a modern word for what used to be called teaching," I said. "It doesn't kill you." "It almost does," she muttered. "And there's this intern, 22 years old, who seems to know everything while I have to ask where the printer is." "You will survive humiliation," I said quietly. "It is good for the soul." Daniel complained about his shifts. "Old man, I swear, if I see another pallet in my life, I'll scream," he said one morning, dropping into my armchair with a groan. "My legs are dead. We had to unload 3 trucks in the cold last night. For what? $13 an hour." "Cash for hours," I said. "That's the purest form of money you will ever earn." "It's slavery," he muttered. "Slavery is when you are owned by someone," I said. "You can quit. You choose not to because you want my money. That's motivation, not chains." He glared at me, but there was no real heat in it. Under the complaint, I heard something new, a hint of pride. He was tired. He had earned his tiredness. Lisa's calls were different. "The residents, they remember things," she said one evening. "They tell me stories about when they were young. One woman, Irene, she cries when her daughter calls, then cries when she hangs up. She says her daughter is too busy to visit. She smiles so hard when we do bingo, like it's the highlight of her week." And how does that feel? I asked. Tiring, she admitted. Emotionally, but weirdly, good. Like I matter, at least for the length of a crossword puzzle. You do matter, I said. You just never believed it unless someone clicked like under your photo. She was quiet for a moment. That's harsh. It's true. Yeah, she said softly. It is. 6 weeks passed. Mr. Green, my lawyer, called. Your children have sent their first pay stubs, he said. I could hear amused respect in his voice. I didn't believe they would, to be honest. And? I asked. They are earning, he said. Not much yet, but they are. Anna's salary is higher, but she also spends more. Daniel shifts between exhausted enthusiasm and resentment. Lisa's pay is modest, but she has surprisingly good notes from her supervisor. They say she connects well with the residents. I felt something like pride flicker in my chest. It felt unfamiliar and dangerous. Keep track, I said. Every cent, every hour. I will, he said. By the way, one of them already tried to bend the rules. My hand tightened on the phone. Explain. Daniel sent me a screenshot of some profit he made on a speculative trade, Mr. Green said dryly. He called it earned income. When I told him the rules clearly specify employment income with tax withholding, he argued that he worked very hard on that trade. I sighed. And what did you tell him? To read the document again, he said, and to get some rest. Something between a laugh and a groan escaped me. You do realize, Mr. Green added gently, that this arrangement may cause serious friction among them. Siblings have fallen out over less than $2 million. They already fell out, I said, years before any of this. They just pretended otherwise. Now they will at least be honest about what they are fighting over. You are playing with fire, Mr. Collins, he said. I know, I said. But sometimes you have to burn a field to make it fertile again. If the story ended there, perhaps you would be satisfied already. But revenge has a way of growing past the boundaries you set for it. It's like fire in that way, and one day it nearly burned more than I was willing to lose. It happened on a rainy Tuesday, 3 months into the experiment. My strength had returned slowly but steadily. I could now move around the house with a cane instead of the wheelchair, at least for short distances. I did my exercises every morning, counting each repetition like another day stolen back from the grave. That afternoon, as I was finishing my routine, the doorbell rang. It was Lisa. No makeup, hair soaked from the rain, clothes smelling faintly of antiseptic and cheap coffee. Dad, she said, we need to talk. I led her into the kitchen. She sat at the table, twisting her hands. I almost quit today, she said without preamble. Your job? I asked. She nodded. One of the residents, Mr. Hargrove, he died. Right in the middle of the afternoon bingo game. 1 second he was arguing about whether we should accept key as a word in Scrabble. The next he just slumped. Her voice trembled. I poured her tea. My hands shook more than usual, but she did not comment. I've never seen anyone die before, she whispered. I mean, Mom, but you protected us from the worst of it. This was different. There was just this moment when his eyes emptied, like someone turned off the light. Yes, I said quietly. It is always like that. The nurse came. The doctor was called. There were procedures, she continued. Then his daughter arrived. She hadn't visited in months, apparently. She burst into the room wailing about how unfair it was, how she had wanted to bring the grandchildren next week. The staff just looked at each other. They all knew the truth. She was crying more for herself than for him. She looked at me, eyes filled with something raw. I saw myself in her, she whispered, and I hated it. I said nothing. I wanted the job for the money, she admitted, for your stupid challenge. But today, when I watched her throw herself over his bed, yelling that she never got the chance to properly say goodbye, all I could think was, "You had years. You just didn't want to spend them on him." Rain tapped at the window in small, insistent fingers. "I realized what I did to you," she said. Tears spilled, but she wiped them away angrily, as if they offended her. "All those times I said I'd call and didn't. All the times I canceled lunch because something came up. All the times I posted quotes about family being everything while ignoring your messages." She took a shaky breath. "I don't want your money," she said. "Not like that." I stared at her. "This is not about—" I began. "It is," she interrupted. "You wanted to punish us, to make us feel what you felt. Well, at least I do now. I feel it, and I am ashamed." She pushed her chair back, stood up, paced the small kitchen like a caged animal. "I'm going to keep working at the facility," she said, "not because of your silly 50,000, because it's the first time I've done something that matters to someone other than me. But as for the inheritance, if you want to give it to Anna or Daniel or the scholarship fund or burn it in the backyard, go ahead. I relinquish my claim." The words hung in the air between us. "I don't believe you," I said quietly. "Not yet." She met my eyes. "I know, but maybe one day you will." She left shortly after, the door closing behind her with a soft click. I sat at the table, her teacup still warm. I had wanted repentance. Here it was, raw and messy. So why did it hurt? 2 days later, Daniel arrived. He didn't text beforehand. He just walked in, tracking mud on the hallway rug, shoulders sagging. "What happened?" I asked. He shrugged. "Nothing." We both knew that was a lie. I waited. He collapsed into the armchair, rubbing his knees. "You know what's funny?" he said, staring at the ceiling. "I used to think I was a busy man. I stayed up all night watching markets, reading forums, planning trades. I called that work." "It is a kind of work," I said. "When done properly," he snorted. "Then I started at the warehouse. I met men who've been unloading trucks since before I was born. Guys who drive an hour each way, then haul boxes for 10 hours straight, then go home and fix their own cars because they can't afford a mechanic." He shook his head. "There's this one guy, Miguel," he continued. "He's 58, 2 kids in college, worked since he was 15. Never complains, not once. He just lifts and stacks and cracks jokes about the supervisors. Today I watched him sneak into the bathroom to rub his back and swallow painkillers so he could finish his shift. Then he went back out and covered for me when I messed up an order." He swallowed. "I told him about your challenge," he said. "About the 50,000. You know what he said?" "What?" "He said, 'You're lucky, man. My dad didn't have anything to leave me. All I got was his work ethic.'" He barked a humorless laugh. "I realized I got neither," he said. "You gave me everything else. I gave myself nothing." He looked at me then, really looked, and for a moment he wasn't my 37-year-old son. He was the boy who used to bring me his broken toys, trusting I could fix anything. "I am not sure I deserve your money," he said. "I am not sure any of us do." "That's not for you to decide," I said gently. "Actually it is," he replied. "I can walk away. I can say no. Can you?" I asked. He hesitated. He wanted that money. You could see it in the tight line of his mouth. He had already calculated how many debts it would clear, how many mistakes he could cover with one stroke of my pen. But somewhere in that warehouse, under the fluorescent lights, among the pallets and sweat and grunts, something had shifted. "I don't know," he admitted. "Not yet. But I do know this. When you were lying in that hospital bed, tubes everywhere, I didn't care about you. I cared about the numbers. I listened to your heart monitor like a stock ticker. Up means, maybe we wait. Down means, call the lawyer." He closed his eyes. I hate that version of me, he said. I don't want to be him anymore. He leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. Whatever you decide with the will, he said slowly, I'll accept it. If I win, fine. If I lose, fine. But can we start over? Not as investor and asset, as father and son. I wanted to say yes immediately. My tongue itched with the urge. Instead, I said, start by coming over next Sunday without expecting anything in return. No conversations about money. No updates about your earnings. Just bring yourself. We'll see from there. He nodded. He left without mentioning the $50,000 again that day. 2 down. I wondered when Anna would come. She took longer. It wasn't pride exactly. It was habit. She had built her personality around pretending to be fine, to be thriving, even when everything was collapsing. The day she finally cracked, it did not look dramatic. She came over on a Saturday afternoon in jeans and a plain t-shirt, without her usual war paint. Her eyes were ringed with dark circles. I got fired, she said, dropping onto a chair. Why? I asked simply. Because I am not 25, she said with a bitter smile. At least, that's how it feels. Officially, it was because my performance metrics weren't robust enough. Translation: I couldn't keep up with the workload, and I questioned some of their idiotic campaigns. She rubbed her temples. I thought I was special, she said. I thought my creativity and personal brand made me too good for ordinary jobs. Turns out I am not different from anyone else. I am just older and less experienced. And angrier, I added. She chuckled without humor. That too. She stared at the table. I hated that job, she admitted. But I loved getting that paycheck, seeing the numbers appear in my account, knowing I'd earned them by surviving 8 hours of boredom and criticism. It felt real. More real than any sponsorship or affiliate deal. When they took it away, it hurt more than I expected. Because you had begun to rely on yourself instead of others, I said. Losing that is scarier. She nodded. And as for your challenge, she said, lifting her head, you can keep it. That's a popular phrase in this house lately, I said softly. Explain. I started working for the money, she said, for the inheritance, to beat Daniel and Lisa. I did the math. $50,000 at that salary would take, maybe a year and a half? I could do that. I wanted to win, to sit at your funeral. Sorry, that's how I imagined it then, with everyone looking at me as the worthy one. She grimaced at her own words. But then I watched myself at that office, she continued, clawing for every compliment, obsessing over every paycheck, fantasizing about your death so I could finally cash out. I hated that woman. She was shallow and cruel and small. She looked at me, her eyes wet. If winning your money means becoming someone I cannot respect, I'd rather lose, she whispered. I'll find another job. I'll earn for myself, but I won't compete anymore for the privilege of inheriting you as a corpse. Silence. You know, I said slowly, when I lay in the hospital listening to you all whisper about how much I was worth, I felt like an item in an auction catalog. Now you come here and tell me you don't want the prize. I should be offended. Are you? She asked. No, I said. I am relieved. She let out a breath she had been holding. What are you going to do now? She asked. I looked at her, at the woman my little girl had become, flawed and fragile and finally honest. I am going to change my plan, I said. 2 days later, I was back in Mr. Green's office. He was a thin man with precise gestures, the kind of lawyer who always looked as if he could add a 0 or remove one with a twitch of his pen. You want to change the will again, he said, steepling his fingers. Yes, I said. The conditions remain. The story we told them remains, but the content will not. He listened as I explained what had happened, the conversations with Lisa, with Daniel, with Anna. their gradual unhooking from the bait I had dangled before them. "So they all have voluntarily renounced their claim?" he asked. "Not formally, not yet," I said. "But they are walking that path. I want to make sure that if they complete it, the destination is worthy." "And what is the destination in your mind?" he asked. "A life where my love is not measured in dollars," I said, "and where their value is not measured in my balance sheets." He smiled faintly. Philosophical for a legal document. "Can we do it or not?" I asked. "We can," he said. "You remain the owner of your property. You can give it to whomever you please, under whatever legal conditions you choose, as long as it doesn't violate basic statutes." "Good," I said. "Here is what I want. The bulk of the estate goes into a trust in my late wife's name, funding scholarships for children who want to learn a trade or a craft. Not just university. I want welders, carpenters, electricians, nurses, people who work with their hands and hearts." "Very noble," he said, making notes. "A portion," I continued, "will be divided equally among my children. Not enough to make them rich. Enough to clear some debts, maybe start a modest safety net. But here's the condition. They only receive it if, at the time of my death, they have been employed for at least 3 consecutive years. In any legal job. I don't care if they flip burgers or manage corporations. They must be earning their own money." He nodded slowly. "That is enforceable." "And the 50,000? he asked. I smiled sadly. "Gone," I said. "They don't know that. They will live for a while believing they are still in a race. If, during that time, they discover they no longer care about the finish line, then the race has served its purpose." He raised an eyebrow. "And if they never reform?" he asked. "If they cling to greed until the end?" "Then they will still lose," I said, "because the trust will not give them more than a small stipend, and I will die knowing I at least tried." He tapped his pen against the desk. "You are a hard man, Mr. Collins," he said. "No," I replied. "I am a man who lay on a floor last November and heard his children ask, 'Is the old man finally done?' Forgive me if that damaged my enthusiasm for unconditional generosity." He did not argue. He simply drafted the new document, his pen scratching softly on the thick paper. When I signed, my hand trembled, partly from age, partly from the weight of what I was setting in motion. On the drive home, rain blurred the windshield. The wipers swept it aside in rhythmic arcs. My heart beat steadily, each thump a reminder that the game was not over. At home, the house smelled of dust and something else. Hope. The second hook came on a quiet Sunday afternoon in August. By then, the challenge had become a strange new normal. The children still occasionally bragged or complained about their jobs, but less and less did they mention the magic number, 50,000. The conversation shifted subtly. Lisa told me about Irene's funeral and how the staff had held hands behind the chapel because none of the family had shown up. Daniel bragged about how fast he could now stack pallets without hurting his back, then casually mentioned that he had turned down an easy scam to fudge hours because it wouldn't be right. Anna surprised me by taking a part-time job at a local bookstore, saying she was tired of screens. She smelled of paper and dust when she hugged me, and it reminded me of her mother. We were, for the first time in years, a family that talked about something other than money. Then the envelope appeared under my pillow. White, plain, slightly crumpled. No name. For a moment, as my fingers brushed it, a cold thread of fear laced through me. Heart patients do not like surprises near their chest. We have seen too many monitors. I opened it with slow, stiff fingers. Inside were 3 sheets of paper. The first was from Lisa. Handwritten. Messy. "Dad, I can't forgive myself for how I treated you when Mom died. I put my grief above yours and hid in my distractions." Working with people near the end of their lives, I see every day how children waste the time they have. I was one of them. I want you to know that if tomorrow you burned every dollar you have, I would still come on Sundays. Not because you are perfect, but because you are my father, and I don't want to be the daughter who only realized that at your grave. The second was from Daniel. Typing. Printed. Dad, I told Miguel about you again today. He said, "Tell your father he raised a stubborn idiot but not a lost cause." I agree. I am late to this whole being a man thing, but I am trying. I've decided that whatever I get from you when you're gone, if anything, will go first to paying off what I owe you, on paper or in spirit. I am making a list of every time you bailed me out. It's long. Don't laugh. Thank you for forcing me to look in the mirror, even if I didn't like what I saw. The third was from Anna, shortest of all. Dad, I used to think you owed me. Now I understand I have been walking around for 40 years as if I were the center of the story. You taught me, with brutal methods, that I am not. If I ever have children, and they talk about me the way I talked about you on Thanksgiving, I hope I have the courage to haunt them. I love you. My hands shook as I held those pages. Not from illness. From something else. Something bigger and softer that pressed behind my ribs until it hurt. It dawned on me then that my revenge had already succeeded in the only way that mattered. My children had stopped seeing me as a bag of money and started seeing me as a person. They did not know that the inheritance game was already over. They were still working, still clocking in and out, still saving, still counting, still thinking they might one day win. But in those letters, each of them voluntarily stepped away from the prize. They relinquished their claim, not in a lawyer's office with dry signatures, but in the quiet of their own consciences. A week later, I called them all to the house. I did not tell them why. They arrived at different times, as always, but something had changed even in that. Lisa came early to help set the table. Daniel brought groceries. Anna baked a pie from a recipe she had found in one of the store's cookbooks. We sat at the same table where I had fallen that last Thanksgiving. The turkey was smaller now, just enough for 4. My appetite was not what it used to be. We ate, we talked, we laughed a little, real laughter, not the brittle sound of people acting a part. After dessert, I cleared my throat. "There is something we need to discuss," I said. They went quiet instantly. "The will?" Daniel guessed. "Yes," I said. Anna groaned. "Dad, we told you." "I know what you told me," I said. "I read it in your letters." They flushed. "You weren't supposed to, Lisa began. "You put them under my pillow," I said. "You wanted me to read them." They looked at each other, then back at me. "I changed the will," I said. Daniel frowned. "Again?" "Yes," I said. I told them about the trust in their mother's name, about the scholarships, about the conditions for their modest shares, about the 3 years of continuous employment requirement. They listened, brows furrowed, expressions shifting from surprise to confusion to something like acceptance. "So no winner takes all," Anna said slowly. "No," I said. "No more race." "And all that time we were competing," Daniel said. "You already knew none of us would get the whole thing." "Yes," I said. "You lied," Lisa said quietly. "There was no accusation in it, just fact." "Yes," I said again. There was a pause. "I hated you for that," she admitted. "For months. I thought you were punishing us out of spite." "I was punishing you out of pain," I said. "You broke something in me that night on the floor. I did not know any other way to fix it." We sat with that for a moment. The clock ticked on the wall. Somewhere outside, a car door slammed. Life went on, oblivious to the moral drama at one old man's table. "Do you still hate me?" I asked eventually. Lisa looked at me, eyes wet. "No," she said. Because I broke something bigger. I broke our family. If it took you lying to us to force us to see that, then I'll take the lie. Daniel exhaled sharply. So let me see if I understand. We either keep working like normal people, hold a job for 3 years and get some money, or we quit, go back to our old ways and get nothing. Correct, I said. He rubbed his chin. I think I prefer this version. At least now, whether I get money or not, I can look at myself in the mirror. Anna smiled faintly. Besides, if the money goes to those kids, to Mom's scholarship, I can live with that. She'd like that. Yes, I said softly. She would. She blinked rapidly, swallowing. Dad, she said, can we officially say something so there's no confusion later? Go ahead, I said. Anna Collins, she said, voice trembling but steady. Don't care how much you leave me. I mean it. Not $1 is worth more than the Sundays we've had this year. If I ever try to fight the will after you're gone, let the court read this aloud and laugh me out of the room. We smiled. Daniel Collins, my son said, catching on, except that I'm in debt to you in ways no money can cover. I will take whatever you give, if you give it, but I won't chase it. I'll keep my job even if you secretly leave me nothing, just to prove to myself I can. Lisa Collins, my youngest added, promise that if I ever stand over your bed and cry, it will be because you are gone, not because your safe is locked. We all laughed then, even me. It hurt my chest, but it was the sweetest pain I'd felt in years. Good, I said. Then I consider the matter settled. There was one more thing I had to say. You know, I added, my voice quieter, when I started this, I wanted revenge. I imagined you scrambling for paychecks, humiliated, tired, desperate, finally tasting what I tasted for decades. I wanted to watch you suffer and tell myself it was justice. They did not interrupt. But somewhere between your first complaints and your recent letters, I continued, something changed. I saw you grow. I saw you discover pride in yourselves. I saw you apologizing to me not to unlock a vault, but because your conscience demanded it. I looked at each of them in turn. That, I said, was all I ever wanted. Not obedience, not gratitude, just children who understood what a life costs. My eyes burned. I blinked, and for once did not pretend it was dust. You passed the test, I said simply. They stared at me, speechless. Outside, the late summer sun was sinking, casting long shadows across the table. For a moment, I saw another Thanksgiving, another table, another version of us. The old man on the floor. The children hovering, calculating. The sentence, is the old man finally done? In its place now was a different scene. At the same table. An old man sitting upright. 3 children with tired eyes and calloused hands and souls that had been scrubbed raw by work and guilt and effort. No one asked, "How much will I get?" They asked, silently, "Will you be here next year?" That night, after they left, I went to bed slowly, my cane tapping softly on the hallway floor. I lay down carefully, my heart thudding in the quiet room. I thought about my money, folded neatly in accounts and investments. I thought about the scholarships that would one day bear my wife's name. Sending kids like me once was into workshops and classrooms. I thought about my children each walking their own path now, not because there was a prize at the end, but because they had finally tasted the strange satisfaction of being useful. And I realized that in the end, I had not really taught them to love me. Life had done that. All I had done was build a crooked, complicated bridge over their greed and push them onto it. They walked the rest. If you ask me whether it was worth it, the coma, the pain, the confrontation, the lies, the legal games, I will tell you this. Next Thanksgiving, when I sit at that same table, and my son lifts his glass and says, "I'm grateful Dad's still with us," and my daughters nod, not out of obligation, but out of truth. I will be rich beyond anything a will can record. They once saw me as a bag of money that had to be emptied. Now, for the first time in a long time, they see me as a father. And that, finally, is an inheritance we all share.
My grandpa's words really happened. I believe him. If you want more true tales stories like this, hit subscribe.